Shabbos. The Shabbos is getting late, and the fact that everybody's coming out is a testament to this. This is a very meaningful time. A number of months ago, I was visited by my very good friend Rabbi Noah Chesles, and I asked him what he's reading, and he said, I just picked up this book. Dr. Brown's most recent book, Morning Has Broken. I immediately ordered it and started reading it then, and I was so taken by this book. I was so moved. I immediately emailed Dr. Brown, and I said, well, the next time you're in town, I'd love you to just allow us to understand the processing to see this. And Baruch Hashem, Dr. Eric Herman is back in town, and I want to say you're especially gracious, because I don't think we have the time to read. I don't know how we find the time to read the books, and I can't imagine how she has the time to even write the books that we don't. It's amazing how much she is producing, but is always right on point. Always right on point to what we're experiencing. Give us empathy to that experience. I'm especially grateful today because Dr. Brown has been speaking all day long. Yes. Dr. Brown has been speaking in the Young Israel Woodmere, and it's very gracious that he gave us a little bit of a quiet corner here together among friends to appreciate what she continues to do. Thank you, Dr. Eric Herman, for being here.
Yeah. All right, it's very special to be back. Thank you. I had my first Shabbos in Woodmere. My whole life. This is the first one.
It's very nice.
I'm back here, so I feel like I'm home. So I'm going to talk about the book. I don't love talking about my books. Like you read it, then I'll talk about whatever. I'm not trying to sell a book. I do want to talk a little bit about why I wrote the book and what it's about. But I actually wanted to talk about something totally different that's related. So everyone has favorite mitzvot, right? Does everyone have a favorite mitzvah? If you don't have one, think of one quickly. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask, let's say in an interview, what's your favorite mitzvah? And they just don't see that coming. Oh, I think we're going to ask the strength and weakness question. And I was going to say, my weakness is that I work too hard. Right? You know how it goes. But because it gives me certain insight into the person. If you see, like, what is a mitzvah that they put a lot of effort into? Does anyone want to have a favorite mitzvah before I tell you mine? Please.
Background.
Stucco. Okay, beautiful. What a beautiful thing. Why?
Because that's God blesses you with money.
Okay. Wow. Okay, we're done. The evening is over. What's your name?
Michael Keshner.
Okay, Michael, that's beautiful, right? And just the way you articulated that with such conviction and simplicity and clarity. Beautiful. Anyone else? Who's going to beat that? Let's go. All right, guys.
Trying to be godly.
Trying to be godly. Wow, we've upped the ante here. Wow, this is like next level. Can you just say a little bit more about why that particular?
God gave in a selfless way. God gave to us. He created us and gave to us. In a certain sense, the human condition is naturally frail. We are, in a certain, let's trying to do that, and our frailty help others. That's his thing.
That's the reason two of your favorites, Rebecca favorites.
I was going to say eating on every Yom Kippur. It's much better. Much better.
I mean, I love that answer too. Honestly, this side of the room is smoking. I don't know what's going on with you guys, but I'm going to give you a chance. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So. Right, and again, these are large and broad conceptual categories. Then the question is, how do you fulfill the specifics of it? But anyway, this is a great question to ask on the Shabbos table. I don't know if you remember, we have a Seder coming up. Okay, right, we have 2 Storm coming up. If you're looking for conversation for Yom Tov, it's like a fun, how do you think about your favorite mitzvah? I was really inspired because a friend of mine and a mentor, Rabbi Ivan Lerner, gave a drasha that made a real impression on me. Is what is the hardest mitzvah? And he talked about the hardest mitzvah and at different life stages, how the hardest mitzvah changed for him, right? When he was a teenager, what was hard? When he was in his 20s, when he was in his 30s, it was such an interesting perspective. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, so I had asked this question in an interview and to Rabbi J.D. Shancer and another rabbi. And then afterwards, someone had said, well, what's your favorite mitzvah? I'm like, no, I'm the interviewer. No, that's not okay. So I started thinking about it. I said, give me some time. And I realized it's Hashavat Aveda. And you were not expecting that, were you? You were not expecting that. So here, initially, and this came to me automatically. And even though Talmud Torah is very important to me, davening is very important. I don't know, just there's so many mitzvot that I love, but that came to me because I'm a person who loses a lot of things. Okay, I lose a lot of things, and it's probably the speed at which I move, the way that my brain does not work or works in certain ways, but not in other ways, to the degree that a close friend of mine, made me mishloach manot. She made me a chocolate phone, keys, and glasses. Right? My son said to me before he went to Gush, my third son said, Ima, how am I going to go to Israel to learn in yeshiva? Who's going to find your glasses for everything? Right? It's like, it got that bad. Everything just got better. Okay. Should I tell Mom what we said? Should we ask? We're talking about our favorite mitzvot. It's changed like another. Guess what his favorite mitzvot is? What?
Nobody said that if you were there.
This is mine. You know what? We're talking about favorite mitzvot. Do you want to tell your mother?
Rabbi Trump was saying halach the bedracha, following in God's way. So I said eating on Erev Yom Kippur.
Right. And you got a lot of likes for it. Anyway, so I said Hashavat Aveda, right? And part of it is because I lose things. But here's the thing. I have no yeush. I never believe that something is not going to come back to me. And often I'm right because I just misplace it. I haven't actually lost it. But if I tell you, if I lost a pencil in 6th grade, it's coming back any minute. I'm 58, okay? The pencil is making its way back. I let go of small things, but in the bigger things, I think things will make their way back. And I think this comes from a much deeper belief that human beings are actually good. And if they find something, they want to return it. And what a feeling it is when someone returns something to you that you never thought that you were going to have, right? It's such an unbelievable feeling. And I say that I had an experience when my daughter gave birth in December. To a baby girl. Anyway, we had to go to the hospital early. There was some issues, but then we came back. And anyway, it was a Shari Tzedek in Israel, and I went to the shul to daven Marav, and it was a little late, but I was trying to manage my own anxiety. And I take a sitter. It was like a pink sitter, and I see there's a name of someone in the sitter, and has phone number. It's like phone number. I said, now maybe my daughter lost a sitter on her Poland trip, and she's so upset about it. She's still upset about it. So it was years ago. I said, you know what? Maybe this young woman lost her sitter, and I could return it. So it had her number, so I WhatsApped her, and I took a photo. I said, is this yours? And she said, it is mine. She goes, you found my sitter. She goes, I don't know how it ended up there. She was in Midrash Moriah. Midrash Moriah wasn't that, but well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I have this sitter, and she says to me, I said, well, my daughter is here. She's giving birth. It was in the hospital. Would you like me to bring it back? She said, that would be amazing. Bless you. And I'll pay for the shipping. I said, don't worry about it. It's my mitzvah. I'm so happy to return to you because, of course, this is my favorite mitzvah. If I have an opportunity to do this mitzvah. Anyway, when I called her, I realized I don't know her address. So I text her, what's her address? She's in Hollywood, Florida. I'm like, my other daughter lives in Hollywood, Florida. So I'm going to return it myself, right? And it was such a nice moment because 11 years ago, she lost the sitter, and all of a sudden it's back. And then as we were speaking, we realized all these connections that we had to each other. Why do I say that? Because I was thinking a lot. We're in day 541 of this war. It is inconceivable. The number is inconceivable. And we also don't have a way forward. We're going into our second Pesach with this hanging over us. And I don't know about you, but the despair is so deep. I literally, just as I was, saying Havdalah, I said, has anyone here heard what's happening in Israel, right? She's like, did something happen? Like, I don't know. It's that Motzei Shabbos where you're just like holding your breath and waiting for something. And I was thinking a lot. I had been in Israel for the first hostage releases. And I was thinking about this mitzvah, Hashavat Aveda, in the deepest, most profound sense of returning a human being to family. It's like, what is our mitzvah to help return? We think of it as redeeming captives, for sure. But there's something about experiences where, certainly on that highest level, is bringing people back to their homes, back to their families. Because what else gets returned when hostage comes home? What do you think? The first one, the supply, right? the Simcha family, the reuniting of the family, the memories, right? Memories that you thought maybe you never have this person again in your life. You sacrifice that. Any other thoughts? Again, this side of the room is generally doing better. I don't want to pressure you. I'm just trying to motivate you. That's hope, right? And the pain when the hope dies because you hear terrible news, right? But when you can restore someone and something, and I think about this. I think that for me, the mitzvah of Hashavat Aveda, on the few occasions when you can actually fulfill it, it just has this deep sense of hopefulness that sometimes something makes its way back home when you don't expect it. And I want to tell you about the person who made her way back home because of the mitzvah of Hashavat Aveda. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how this filters into how to reflect on the period we're in the book that I wrote. So I used to teach in a number of seminaries in Israel, lived in Israel, and I carpooled, generally for my fraud, I carpooled with a number of different people. S.D. Rosenberg was the carpool of mine, and Tzvi Leshem. Anyway, so I'm with Tzvi, and he was teaching at Nishmat also, and he says to me, do you have so-and-so in your class? I said, actually, I do. And she was an older student, post-college, and he said to me, she has an incredible story. It's like, I'm always up for an incredible story. Who does not want to hear an incredible story? He said she rejected Judaism. I don't think her family was observant, but she actually really resented Judaism. She felt the way that Christians had often regarded Judaism as too detailed. There's too much minutiae. It's too detailed a religion, and you lose the larger sense of love and gratitude and other feelings, right? So that was her perspective. She was on her way to India to study in an ashram with a guru. And she stopped in Jerusalem because all good stories happen in Jerusalem, but also because her cousins were there. She was there for some family thing, and her cousin lives in the old city, and her cousin said, would you at least come to a class with me? Come to a class with me. What does it hurt to go to a class? So they go to the shir. The shir is on Hashavat Aveda, right? And it's so technical. And what if you have simanim, certain kinds of simanim, not simanim? And she says to the cousin, this is exactly what I'm talking about. What do you have to spend so much time thinking about this and that? It's such a waste of time. She goes to the ashram. She's with the guru. She's studying for many months. And she's walking with the guru, and he's teaching her. And she finds, there's a wallet on the floor. And the guru picks it up, and he pockets it. And she says, that's not yours. And he says, finders keepers. Whatever the Indian Sanskrit equivalent of finders keepers. And suddenly she remembers the shir in Jerusalem. And she says to herself, is this the guy I want to learn from? And she got on a plane, and she came back to Israel. There she was, studying in the Shvat. That's an amazing story. It may or may not be true. No, I assume that it's true. But it was interesting to me that it was actually about Hashavat Aveda, because when you actually think not of the particulars, right, which may be technical, but then when you're actually in that place and saying, what is my responsibility? How far should I go in returning this object to someone else? Now, we actually have, and I'm not a halachist, and I'm in the presence of people who paskin. We actually have some literature about helping in cases of extreme mental illness. Are you allowed to be over laws of Shabbat to in a case where you might think that a person is mentally at risk? And one of the justifications for breaking Shabbat in that instance is the mitzvah of Hashavat Aveda is actually returning a soul to themselves. Now, we talked about hostages, we talked about objects, we talked about, someone who made a return, but there's something else that's, I think, much larger that's going on for all of us in society now. And at least for us as Jews in the diaspora and Jews in Israel, which is how much we need to be returned to the selves we were post-October 7th. So when you think about things that have changed for you as a result of October 7th that you sort of wish you could get back, what are those things? Those are not peace of mind in terms of what? The headspace, thinking of what's on your mind? What you're thinking of? How much time gets spent on this? How much energy? Anyone else?
Faith in humanity.
Faith in humanity. The feeling of deep, deep betrayal. You know, someone said to me, you know, Erica, I feel uncomfortable. I don't know when I walk in my office, what do people really think about Jews? And what do they really think about? I've taught so many college students who are not at YU, their mistake, and they're asking themselves, what does my professor think about me? Is it going to impact my grade? Am I socially accepted in certain different kinds of clubs? What does the roommate think? What does someone on my floor think? There's a sense that it's, there's a concept in identity studies around stereotype threat that sometimes you internalize a stereotype of yourself. And so that you shrink yourself, right? So your norms change. You say, if everyone hates me, do I start hating myself? Do I start questioning my own worth? And I've seen this happen. Anyone else think of things that you wish?
Even as an adult, you lose a certain sense of innocence sometimes.
Yeah, I'm innocent. I was just talking to one mashgiach at YU who just became part of the best club as the grandparent. True or not true? True. It's the grandparent club, and he had just become a grandparent, and he said to me like how much it's changed his life, and runs to see his grandson. Any opportunity, just get a little smell his head, and just a little picture of him is so sweet. And I said, I've been thinking about why grandchildren are so kind of almost a course of love, but the sense that they're the only thing in the world that feels innocent, truly innocent right now. Like, but they're young and you feel like, I remember my oldest grandson was 2 years old, and he was staying at our house, and he was upstairs in the laundry room, and he was sitting down, and he was just watching the dryer. And I sat down. He goes, "Softy, look at this." Right? And we sat, watched the dryer. I'm going to say a full cycle, which was a lot of patience on my part. But I was thinking, everything in the world is wondrous. Everything in the world is wondrous. And what a lovely thing to be in a world that's wondrous. And right now, the world doesn't feel like that. Oh, the opposite. Totally the opposite. Where's the sense of everyone's reason and knowledge? Reason, knowledge. I will say, having worked in the pluralistic space for many, many years through my work in Federation, all these people who spent literally decades on tikkun olam issues, right? Issues in larger society, they feel so betrayed. So we go, I saved the whales for you, right? I worked on environmental issues with you. I was working in senior housing and affordable housing with you. And now you alienate me? Now you don't see my world? So I think betrayal, there's so many layers to it, of the feeling of where's the world? Where's reason? Right? How do I talk to someone right now about a situation? I have this, I get a magazine called Poets and Writers, and I was happy to resubscribe. I hadn't read it in a long time, and all of a sudden I see letters to the editor, and I see someone writes this caustic letter. It's like about Jewish authors that we shouldn't support. I don't know if you know what's happening in the publishing world. The Jewish authors now it's very, very hard to get published. We're talking about fiction, right? Fiction, nonfiction. People stay away, and there have been so many writers, probably writers that you've been reading, who are, it's not only pro-Palestinian, it's anti-Zionist, it's anti-Semitic, and the bandwagon. It's hard, it's rough. And here's this letter, someone just taking down any Jewish author, and I was like, I don't even know how to respond. Thank God someone else responded. Like, there were 2 letters, responding, but that feeling, I don't even know what language would I use that someone else wouldn't just attack me even more, right? So I think that there's the innocence is gone that we want to return. The headspace is gone. I don't know about you. I read the news every day, but I'm not a news junkie. But I became a news junkie. How many times do I pick up the phone and oh, what's the news? What's the news? What's the news? Is that true for other people in the room? Yeah. And by the way, how are we going back? So I've lost that part of myself that felt like I could disconnect for a little while. I lost that part. So there's a lot of things that we have to think about. How do we return ourselves to ourselves, and if it's actually possible? I'm thinking about this a lot as as a goal for the Seder, right? It's like for the Sarim. So what should we be talking about at the Sarim that help people actually recover parts of themselves that they feel far from? Any thoughts? Maybe our rabbinic colleagues or... Yeah.
It's a beautiful suffering about Rabbi Natan Resov is finding the child inside yourself. Okay, like children where you find that space in you, so kids and teens.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the Karbach Haggadah, there's a story about, he says, why do we break the matzah? Children find it and bring it back to us. So because in the world's brokenness, children are the only thing that can bring you back and make you whole. And then it gets very nice. Yep.
But maybe we're not supposed to.
Because
there's a reason things happen.
and therefore,
The world wasn't right before. And we have to figure out.
yeah, who's doing that work? I mean, I'm thinking a lot about this. You know, what should we be adding to the Seder? Last year it felt clearer to me, and this year I feel like we're in this prolonged despair. It's protracted. It's hard to know how to think about it.
What have it changed from good? What do we do to change? What do we do differently? What did it change us? It was always there.
It was always high, right?
It came out into the.
It came out. It's
always festering.
Yeah. So I actually talk about it as the volcano, right? It's like the lava that comes out. It's like bubbling and heating underneath the surface, and then it comes out. You can't take that back.
So it becomes our new normal.
Yeah. But I'm saying if this becomes our new normal, we're raising children and grandchildren in an environment that is absolutely morally untenable. And we cannot be prepared to do that. As we have, what does that mean in terms of taking a stance? When I spoke at the Yom Israel, and I've been speaking about this in shuls, throughout the country, is the diaspora communities now, we have a responsibility that is different than the responsibility we had before. You remember that video that first came out, Send It to Israel? Remember the comedic video?
Yeah.
It was like, send it, right? It's like, send it, right? And actually, it was amazing. I've been to Israel 5 times since October 7th, and I took boots, and I took gear, and what did we not take? We took so many things, right? Shampoo for Chaim who have no hair. We took anything. We were so happy to take things. And now you say, okay, we don't need to do that. But then that was kind of easy, right? And we got energy, and we felt like we're doing something. When is the last time you felt like you were doing something? This week. Tell us, please.
Well, I met a converter.
Okay.
The inspiration to all of us.
Yes.
I met a soldier with PTSD who gets scared out and visiting the U.S. and some people just need someone to connect with that you love.
Yeah.
And I spoke to high school graduation in Israel of the best and brightest of Israel, and they're going to change the world. So I saw a lot of positivity and a lot of just trying to share the love from America. But we described about what we have to do. That mitzvah is so much harder.
So much harder.
We're around the era compared to what
Correct.
I can really it's hard to associate a little bit of the challenges here because I'm not with you and I'm not with my family, so we just do the best we can.
Yeah.
To support
And look, I'll say this at YU, where I feel like we've been profoundly involved, John and Rachel Colbert-Poland contacted us to speak at YU. It was really quite amazing. They said, the Matt Krieger was a friend who worked on the Bring Hirsch Home campaign, basically said, and this was last year when Hirsch was when he was still alive, but we weren't sure what happened to him. But it was in April, and Matt Krieger said Rachel needs to be with people who understand Hebrew, who understand Judaism, who understand the importance of Tehillim, who understand the importance of singing. Like she was going to seminaries. She came to Hawaii. She wrote to thank me for organizing. She's like, this meant so much to us. We got so much chizuk for it. So we organized. We're having Rabbi Perez is coming to speak to students this week. We have things going on. We organize. We hear. But that's different than the level of contribution that we had in the beginning of the war. Or people who talked about unity. Remember all the actus? No one is talking about that anymore. And if you're reading the news, you know the level of protests that are going on in Israel today. Things feel so tenuous and really difficult. I say that because I think the big next assignment is going to be supporting mental health initiatives to overcome trauma in Israel. As I said in the Israel book bank, it's a lot easier to buy boots. It's a lot easier to buy boots, because it's tangible. You feel you're doing something, even if you're actually not really doing something that's that helpful, like the shampoo for the Chayal who doesn't have hair. What will it mean for us, for shuls throughout the diaspora, to take on mental health, to support mental health services in a particular city in Israel, or in particular Plugot, that's the job right now. I've been speaking to people in the mental health space in Israel. Who's going to pay for all of this? And I'm thinking, no, that's our job. We have not been serving on the front lines. The least we could do is that responsibility of returning someone's soul to themselves. Because to your point, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Ellie Swiller.
Ellie. So Ellie, I mean, you said such a beautiful thing. We don't understand what it's like. You can read 100 articles. You don't know what it's like to have your home displaced for X number of months, right? And to hear sirens all the time, or to, God forbid, have your child as a hostage, or your brother or your sister, right? So we don't know that. And what we do know is that it's very hard to recover from that. And this is generations of work. So I want to just read something from the book. I'll talk about the book for a second, and I won't belabor it. But when I went, my first trip was within 2 weeks of the war starting, and I realized that something was happening here. I mean, that was pretty new. If you remember the day when we found out. You remember that day? Simchas Torah, right? It was. It was the day before Simchas Torah. It was Shabbos, right? Last year, so they had me can't for us, right? So if you remember, we found that, and we didn't know exactly what happened. And someone came from 30 people had been taken hostage. Like 30 people, and then the news was climbing, and then those first weeks, we just had no real concrete idea of what had happened with the wall, of why the IDF, what happened with services there. It was very, very shocking, and when I went with the UJ Federation trip of rabbis and educators, very organized, very, very last minute. And that's when I first met Rachel and John. And I started writing. It was like obsessively. And I just could not stop. It was like, I'm a child of a Holocaust survivor. I was like, I have to keep writing. I have to, we have to document. Now, I'm not a journalist, so I wasn't doing journalistic writing. I was doing impressionistic writing. But I kept speaking to people, and then seeing things like in Israel, when the eggs had Am Yisrael Chai on them and the top of the cottage cheese, I was like, we need to write about this, right? We need to write about this, because there's going to come a time when we read this and we're actually not going to believe it. Or we're not going to believe that this actually took place. Not the evil, and the evil of anti-Semitism here on college campuses. I felt like I had to document. And then sort of put a framing. And I did it for the first 100 days. And I brought it to Hanukkah. And then I stopped. And then I said, why am I stopping? The war's not stopping. So I did it for a whole year. And then I stopped after a year. Now, that's an arbitrary date. Again, I wasn't trying to document what, particular mission, but the feelings that people had, they were very hard to express as a diaspora Jew. But as a diaspora Jew, I'm also an Israeli citizen. So sort of going in between and living in this in-between life. And thank God, a lot of people have said to me, bless you, that's what you were right. That's exactly what I was feeling. I didn't even remember now what I was feeling then, because I didn't go back to that place. And I understand people who don't want to go back there. But I just want to read you something, and hopefully it won't take long. I wanted to read you, the title was Morning Has Broken, and it had a variety of titles. You don't have to bring me Rise from Cat Stevens. I understand. I know the song. I know his background. But I think actually he doesn't have the monopoly on the concept that the morning just broke. This happened early in the morning, and it was very, very hard. So I wanted to think about the brokenness of a morning. Hamas terrorists started this war early in the morning as they breached the barrier between Gaza and the Gaza envelope. Envelope is a strange word implying embrace, which is what these communities did. They embraced the border. 70,000 Israelis hugged the border of hatred that surged one October morning like a tsunami of devastation over a wall that was no longer a wall. Morning has broken. Morning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, is broken. Morning is broken. And then I quote a variety of psukim about the morning. So one is from Devarim. In the morning, you'll say, oh, that it were evening. And in the evening, you'll say, oh, that it were morning, because of the fear that terrifies your heart and the sight which your eyes see. And I sort of record different things that happen in the morning. But of course, my issue was, how do you maintain faith in this pain? And I write, faith is the belief that a new morning will eclipse the night. The belief that morning will follow night is an act of emotional resilience. Day after day during this war, I have recited Psalm 130 alone and in community as I waited for the morning after. My soul, my soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. The refrain highlights the intensity of the waiting. A watchman's job is to wait for the morning when his shift ends. But our shift never ends because we always have to stay vigilant. My friend tells me that her young daughters in school in America now require a guard to move from school to the neighborhood park. What if someone sees these children are Jewish? What if? Always what if? The lack of vigilance has caused endless misery. Sometimes we have to wait a long time for the morning. Sometimes it feels like the waiting will last forever. The morning will come, I convince myself. O Lord, we say in Tehillim, hear my voice in the morning. Before the world encroaches, the morning allows me to put yesterday's woes behind and entertain the possibility of newness. It allows me to fall in love with the world again and hope that God falls in love with us again. Let me hear in the morning of your steadfast love, the psalmist says. Even in Jeremiah's catalog of doom, morning love blooms. The steadfastness, love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And that is from Ava. The morning revives my vigor and belief. I will sing aloud of your steadfast love in the morning. This chesed, this steadfast love, makes sense in the morning. We regard the internal bruises of late-night arguments, even crises, differently in the tender haze of daybreak. And that sense is of saying, something is really difficult. I can't really think about this anymore. I'm just going to wait till the morning, right? We have some kind of crisis, some kind of a family emergency. At night, one verse permits me to rest from another psalm I've said dozens of times this year. See, the guardian of Israel neither sleeps nor slumbers. Danger lurks in the night. The time difference between Israel and the United States is a distancing mechanism that keeps diaspora Jews slightly out of step with Israel. We wake up not knowing what has happened there for a few hours. Has anyone been affected by this time difference? Right? It is so hard. My mother-in-law was taken to hospital in Israel on October 7th, and she had metastasized cancer, which we didn't know about. She ended up dying December 20th. And the time difference, was hitting us as a family in collective, but also as a family. In three places in the sages and the Talmud asked, does God sleep? Lately, I've wondered if God is sleeping. Stay awake, I beg God, when the Jewish people are in a state of suffering. I'm comforted by the words of my teacher, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Prayer, he wrote, gives sacred space to the tears that otherwise would have nowhere to go. Across the abyss, I reach out to God, the guardian of Israel, who neither sleeps nor slumbers. These are my very last words that put the distractions from the day to bed as I prepare for the darkness of uncertainty. Every morning should be like the first morning. The morning after this war, we'll start living joyfully again, I reassure myself. We are a morning people. Our fate is streaked in gold and pink across the heavens as dawn breaks. The sunrise looks beautiful even during catastrophes. In this broken world, a scrap of beauty always remains, sometimes even a skyfall. And as we read in Tehillim, and I'll close, weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. So to me, just to connect the beginning with the end, the idea of Hashavat Aveda, of returning something, which the rabbi helped me find quickly, the pasuk from Parshat Mishpatim, ki tifgav shor vecha or chamor toeh hashev teshivenu, right? And, someone loses a donkey, loses something of great value, right? A cattle, an ox or a donkey. You have a mitzvah to return that to the person, because that's a person's livelihood. That animal is going to make a difference, right? So to begin that, and it's not incidental to me that we start talking about returning things after Jews leave slavery, when they need to be returned to some sense of human agency. And of course, Pesach is the holiday that we celebrate human agency. And then thinking to ourselves, what did it mean to go out b'chatzot halayla? It's to say, tomorrow we're going out in the middle of the night, but tomorrow morning we're going to wake up as a free people for the first time. May it be that tomorrow this will all be over. Thank you. Questions, comments, observations? Nothing? It's another day. Thoughts? All right. Well, thank you.
What are you going to be doing for the Edward Seder this year?
What? Let me put on my glasses so I can hear you.
Just accents. What are you going to be doing differently at your Seder this year?
Right. So last year we wrote a 4-page insert, the Sachs Herenstein Center, called the Hazara of Philip. We took a number of stories, and we're going to be doing the same this year. We'll do an insert. Didn't want to do that, but I think we're here again. And I think I actually wrote something for Mizrahi, and I want to think about this, about, the image of the outstretched arm and the hand. We talk a lot about the hand, because the hand, of course, is the way that we act in the world, is through the hand, and we think of the Yad Hashem and our own hands. And then I thought about like Emily Damari's hand, right? And if you remember, she was the hostage that had turned into her fingers. I have a connection with the family, and she had reconstructive surgery a few weeks ago, and and it was a very, very long and painful surgery apparently. And I wrote to the friend who was the contact with her mom, Mandy, and I said, would it be okay if we had Stern students write to Emily? And we collected, I can't even tell you how many letters that I sent together. And these young women wrote, you don't even know what a hero you are to me. I love you so much. We've never met. But I hope one day to give you a hug, and you give us so much courage. We're all dominating for Hashem. Like, I was just very verklempt reading them. So I'm thinking about the kind of family assignments we can give at the Seder, but to actually really reflect on the day, the different, it's interesting. We invest so much in the night of Pesach, and then the day you're like, just go to the buffet, right? So we're just, we're so tired. We can't even we're not setting the table. And I think, no, actually, the night was leading to the day. So I think for me, I'm trying to think of how to make the day meals more significant, and also the second day meals. I grew up in Deal, so Deal's near the water. I'm not Syrian, but the Syrian community that was next door to me, and the shul that was next door, they go to the beach and they say Az Yashir, I'm Shrisha Pesach, right? So it's like, how close are we to the body of water here? Pretty close. Right. So I'm not saying that we're going to do it, but I actually think we don't make enough of the Shirah, of really sitting and thinking about what it means to get to that moment of relief that expresses itself in song. And so I think the star, they're long already, and there's plenty to do, and I'm working on, the Divrei Torah. But I'm thinking a lot about the other parts of the Seder and how we can get people to be more hopeful. I think people are losing hope, and they're losing a sense of after. So that's on us, right? And how do you stress the morning? Right? How do you stress the morning? Yes, please.
We've talked about the children, and I'm thinking you want the balance of innocence, but you don't want them to be in la la land and not understanding anything. How do we find some kind of balance with children? And obviously, it's different at different
ages. Developmentally, it's different, right? Depending on the age of the child. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of our teenagers were really engaged in activism on Israel's part, and now I think it's no longer there. So I'm not sure if that's going to be in some way, my hope is that soon we'll be able to help people in the South rebuild, right? And we'll be able to send volunteers the way that, you remember Hurricane Katrina and all the volunteers YU sent, right? All the volunteers that we sent to help rebuild. And now saying, okay, hopefully, I think that being part of a rebuilding project can actually change a young person's life, make that person an activist, make that person a leader. And I hope that process is going to begin very, very soon. But we've got to get people in doing positive things that move, that where they feel that they advance forward. Because just having doom scrolling with kids, right? They're doing enough of that already. They don't need more of that. They need positive things that they can do. And that's why I think all the boots and the shoes and the this and the that was great because you gave them a task. Now it's harder. And I wonder if we should get people to be thinking a little bit more about organizing campaigns for mental health resources, right? And finding organizations that we want to support and then doing that as a block, right? Doing that. Kids in schools, I think there's work to do. I haven't figured out what the assignments are. It's not only my job, but I certainly think about it as an administrator in a university. What's the next thing that we have to do with our students? Where's the next? You could say to Helen from today till tomorrow. You also have to move things, right? You have to plus. And so that's the thought. Yeah. So nice to see you. We're going to start together. And we look exactly the same. I just wanted everyone to let that.
Where becomes the future of the expert keyword?
It's such a big and important question. Is that future of diaspora jury? I just wrote a piece on this actually for 1840, and using the time difference to talk about the difference in communities. I told the story this afternoon that I was with a young Israeli woman who came to America for a few weeks, and we were walking in a town in northern New Jersey, and she started taking pictures of all the Israeli flags and the hostage posters. She's like, she's like, she couldn't believe it, and I actually was hurt by it. So she said, I can't believe that people care so much, and I was like, we've been here all along. We have been crying. We have been waiting. We have been davening. But she didn't know that, or it didn't really register because she sees American Jews as a different nationality. I think that the division is very deep. And so Shannon Goldberg, when I put this piece out, Shannon Goldberg, who teaches in Migdal Oz and has written an important book on decision making for young people. We had a discussion about it. She said, I'm noticing, right? She's in Israel. She said, and she wrote a response to the piece. She said, I'm noticing that in Israel, especially now, people feel like, what do you mean you're having a Father's Day, like celebration? What do you mean you're having these events? She said people are finding it offensive and they belittle diaspora Jewry. And she said, and I'm upset about it because I think a lot of Israelis, especially Olim, who now suddenly they got to Israel and they're like, well, where have you been all along? Okay, well, you just got here yesterday, right? So I think that there's going to be a lot of repair work when we talk about bringing communities together and what are we returning. I think we have to return to some sense as a community that there's work to do. There's work to do on both sides of the ocean. And I think it was easier. People had more after when the work was more defined. Look, we have to step up our game here because unquestionably someone who's had a kid who served for 200 days in the army is thinking like your kid is like, having a great time and whatever they're doing, right? Their great summer camp. What are you guys doing, right? And the divide's becoming larger. So I worry about it. And I think we don't worry about it enough. A lot of people make Aliyah, which is wonderful. A lot of kids are staying longer and serving. So many kids are serving. It's really a beautiful thing. Kids at YU have gone back. So that's beautiful. But the deep divisions are there. And if you don't believe they're true, start speaking to Israelis and Olim who are there. What do you really think about American Jewry? And if they're honest and they do agree about it, they'll tell you. And then you think, oh, that's actually us. Yeah. All right, thank you. Thanks a lot.
And that's a perfect graph for being here. There are books for sale outside. And there's envelopes as well for the prices. And as Dr. Brown is happy to sign those. There's Rana Hashem, who I would like to tonight.